My comrade, you who have gone before me on the path to Palestine, lead me, like you. I thirst for victory. Lead me. See who inhabits our houses. See who occupies our towns. Palestine. Palestine, our country, calls to us. Palestine. Palestine, you who call back your sons and daughters. And you, my comrades, who have departed for Palestine, lead me. We have cried out your name, O my country. Our guns now cry out with us. We have taken up arms, and we will all join you, my comrades, lead me.
Karameh, March 21st, 1968. A small village, a refugee camp on the east bank of the Jordan River. Like all the refugee villages, a base for the guerrilla army. At dawn, tanks and armored cars, supported by planes of the Israeli army, cross into Jordan and attack several refugee villages, especially Karameh. All day long, dozens of aircraft bombed the surrounding guerrilla bases. This was followed by the arrival of Israeli troops at Karameh. Not a sound. Nothing moved. It looked like a desert. Suddenly, when most of the Israeli troops were within the village, the guerrillas arose from ambush. They were from El Fatah and other groups. 15,000 Israeli troops fought in the battle. They left behind dozens of their dead and wounded that couldn't be carried back in the helicopters. They also abandoned tanks. A number of their planes were shot down. Militarily, the Israelis gained nothing. They had wished to destroy the guerrillas by attacking the refugee villages. They only strengthened the people's resistance. The guerrillas grew stronger.
The Palestinians were warned of Israeli troops' concentrations all along the Jordan River 2 days before the attack on Karame. They had to choose between fighting or making a tactical retreat based on the balance of forces. It would probably have been wiser to avoid the battle because the Israelis were very powerful and because the battle was conventional warfare and the Palestinian guerrillas could not compete in that type of fight. However, the general staff of the guerrilla army decided to fight the battle in order to protect the people of the refugee village from annihilation. Before Karame, one could say the guerrilla forces were only a small beginning of determined men, a vanguard, barely a beginning. The Battle of Karameh marked a major stage for new solidarity between the Palestinian masses and their guerrilla forces. The guerrilla war became a people's war. Our people will always say, before Karame, after Karame. You, my son, you, my comrade, who has never seen your country, you who have grown up in exile, you will only know Palestine with gun in hand. Your first steps on her soil will be made at night, between the barbed wire of the occupying forces, under their bullets and shells. You hope for combat. Your pride is our people's struggle. Imperialism has tried 1,000 times to stifle our voices, to destroy us. But after Karame, we know that we will never be forced to our knees. The resistance of the Palestinian people against imperialism and against the Zionist invaders has endured for half a century. You have taken up your father's struggle. Today, in your turn, you have taken up the gun. You, whose ancestor fell under English bullets, whose uncle died facing the Zionist aggressor, whose brother is tortured in Israeli prisons. You can now see the final stages of the history and solitary struggle of the Palestinian people. The struggle is your heritage. The resistance of the peasants, the heroism of the guerrillas has borne fruit and has today become a people's war that will liberate Palestine.
The Palestinian people have struggled for 50 years.
Palestinian people, like the other Arab peoples, were living under a stagnant Turkish rule.
1916. England and France divided the Middle East. England reserved Palestine for itself. Faced with imperialism, the Arab peoples rose up. Damascus, Jerusalem, Cairo. The masses took to the streets. The full force of the nationalist movement hurled itself against the British troops.
$200,000 barrels of oil were being extracted each day. The imperialists also had reserves of manpower which were as useful to them as the oil deposits. Our people supplied the English with cheap labor. Your father was one of those, a quarry worker or a slave in a seaport. The masses of Arabs were bought and sold like cattle. But it was necessary for the English to have accomplices. In November 1917 in London, Lord Balfour declared that England would guarantee the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine.
English imperialism decided to exploit the sufferings of the East European Jews and use the Zionist movement for its own profit.
Until then, our people had lived in goodwill with all the minorities settled in our soil, the Jews as well as others. Today, you and all the other young Palestinians have learned through the fedayeen, men of sacrifice, and through our political cadres to distinguish between Jews and Zionists. Our enemy is not and has never been the Jews. But after the Balfour Declaration, foreigners, Zionists, puppets of British imperialism, came to drive us from our land. The hypocrisy and treachery of the imperialists were without limits. On the one hand, they persecuted the Jewish minorities throughout Europe. On the other, they offered an escape, immigration to Palestine.
Organizing the immigration to Palestine was the task for the English. The Zionist movement became an ally in the repression of the Arab masses.
Not content in just using the Zionist movement, the English imperialists also used the feudal Arab chiefs. The Zionists bought up the Arab lands and with the aid of the English soldiers drove out the Palestinian peasants.
The Arab chiefs made some money, the Zionists got land, and the English imperialists strengthened their position. But the Palestinian peasants lost everything. The Zionists settled on the best land. With each new settlement, hundreds of Palestinians were driven out. Forced from their land, the Palestinian peasants cultivated the desert. The Zionists drove them from this land too.
(1936 to 1939), the First Palestinian Revolution. The stage was set for the longest and most stubborn resistance that the Arab world has known. In the cities, laborers, clerks, and the unemployed rose up in insurrection. In the countryside, peasants reoccupied the land that they had tilled for generations and from which they had been driven. For 30 years, our people fought the invaders. For 30 years, the Palestinian masses led the revolutionary struggles of the Arab people.
Palestine for the Arabs.
A general strike lasting 6 months. Demonstrations in the cities. Armed struggle.
The English hunted those whom they called the terrorists. They hunted through panic into the English ranks.
1/3 of the British Army was sent to Palestine in order to suppress the revolution.
More arms were given to the Zionists.
But the struggle was intensified.
People's committees sprang up everywhere. They formed at the lowest level in neighborhoods and villages.
The wealthy Palestinians were left out of the struggle. The resistance leadership came from the ranks of the people.
We liberated a large part of our territory, but our revolution was not yet mature enough. We could not hold out against the British imperialism. After 3 years of resistance, we were defeated. Our best fighters were killed, imprisoned, or driven out.
Arab prisoners constructing barbed wire barricades for the British in a concentration camp.
We had been attacked in the front by the imperialist troops, on our flanks by the Zionists, and in the rear by the feudal Arab chiefs. The Zionists were triumphant. Their leader, Wiseman, and the English met to discuss the carving up of Palestine.
1939. Zionist military power was encouraged to develop freely. With the Palestinian people divided, the way was open for the creation of the State of Israel and for the formation of its main instrument of aggression, the Zionist army, the Haganah.
World War II weakened British imperialism, and American imperialism assumed first place in the world. The Zionists changed protectors. The U.S. began to play the same role as the English in the Middle East.
April 9, 1948, the first act of the State of Israel. The massacre at DIRA. The Zionists murdered the entire population of a village, men, women, and children. There were over 250 dead. The bodies were dumped into an empty well.
There are two great lies in the Israeli propaganda. The first lie is that in 1948, the Israelis waged a war of independence against the English. The second is that Palestinians waited passively for the Arab armies to rescue them. Now, I will present direct evidence and an explicit refutation of these two lies. First, by 1948, the Haganah was already a well-organized army that was supported by the British authorities, while the Palestinians were forbidden to possess even a single cartridge. Secondly, I was a citizen of Haifa, and the entire Arab quarter was controlled by the Palestinian resistance, who were mainly workers. On April 21st, 1948, the English declared that they were leaving the city. They did not just leave the city, but they blocked all roads leading to the other cities and Arab villages so that no help could get through to the Palestinian forces in Haifa. The English handed over tanks and other war material to the Zionists, and then the English and Zionists together drove through the streets of the city announcing over loudspeaker in Arabic, "Go to the harbor or you will suffer the fate of the citizens of Deir Yassin." That is the first fact. Second fact, everywhere around the large cities there had been a well-organized Palestinian resistance, independent of all English or Arab authority. The resistance purchased arms from all the neighboring countries. There was a form of coordinating committee in each village, and when there was an Israeli attack, someone would arrive on horseback and announce that such and such a village was under attack. All of the young men and all of the peasants who could bear arms would go immediately to the aid of that village. This was a well-organized resistance which prevented the Israeli army from entering Galil until the end of October. Therefore, the Palestinian resistance, a resistance of the workers in the large cities, of the peasants in the countryside, existing everywhere independently of authority, will forever be a great example in the memory of all Palestinians and all progressive people throughout the world.
In 1949, we fought a magnificent struggle in Jerusalem where the workers staged an insurrection, but we were not strong enough. We were driven from our land.
Officers of the Jordanian army collaborated by acting as guides for the English. Jordanian, English, and Zionist officers negotiated the armistice.
Together, they drew up the new borders.
One more dotted line is drawn on the map, and thousands of peasants are deported.
Where are the Palestinian people?
350,000 Arabs remain in Israel, prey to racism and persecution. 400,000 are concentrated in the Gaza Strip under Egyptian authority.
800,000 regroup in the other part of Palestine named Transjordan, when it was annexed to the feudal kingdom of Jordan. 800,000 live in other refugee camps, in Jordan, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Iraq.
In the camps where you were born, my comrade, you have lived as an exile. To the Zionists, we were a people to be eliminated. To the Arab governments, we were a lever for diplomatic pressure. All the reactionaries conspired together to throw us into the camps, but in the camps the flame of resistance was burning. See this old comrade. His 3 sons were killed by the Zionists, one in 1947, the other in 1956, the last in 1967. For you, the camps are the old ones who tell us stories of the struggle. They are the meeting at night in the tents in preparation for combat.
After the defeat in 1956, some units of the traditional Arab armies reorganized into the resistance. Between the creation of El Fatah in 1956 and the first commando raids in 1965, there were 9 years of political work and preparation, from clandestine activity to mass demonstrations to armed struggle. 1965, El Asifah, The Storm, the first armed group.
From this time on, the Palestinian people refused to submit to the Arab governments. When the people demanded guns, the Arab governments created a puppet organization that they could control. The puppet leaders gave speeches and organized parades.
While the Arab puppets marched, the Zionist state prepared its new war.
An Israeli member of parliament has stated,
We should make the world understand that Israel plans to gather together the Jews of all countries and concentrate them as quickly as possible in order to expand our borders from the Euphrates to Suez.
Ben Gurion has said,
The present map of Palestine is drawn according to the mandate. But nonetheless, the Jewish people have another map in mind that stretches from the Nile to the Euphrates. Our youth and our men will see that it's realized.
June 1967. Statesmanship. In the occupied territories. Everything is demolished. A dynamited house in Naples. Napalm is used on villages.
the defeat of the traditional Arab armies, the shameful conduct of the bemedaled, gold-braided Arab generals of Nasser, Hussein, and Faisal has helped advance the people's war. These reactionary Arabs can no longer fool the masses. My brother, my comrade, we will soon return to Palestine. Out there, in the occupied lands, the Palestinian masses are waiting for us. They bear the same determination and the same hopes that have always sustained our people in their struggle. These colonized villages must become the center of our resistance. In Jerusalem, in Gaza, and Nablus, each day, men and women and children learn of the people's strength. Everywhere we go, they will shelter and protect us. We are waiting for the moment to leave. The Jordan River, a contested border, divides our people in half. They wish to cross it and be reunited. They wish to return to their land. Their aspirations will soon be realized.
The Palestinian people have defeated all of the conspiracies set against them. The first conspiracy is fear.
The Israeli Minister of War, Moshe Dayan, declared,
The terrorist activities, disorders, and violent demonstrations oblige the security forces to take the following steps.
Retaliation.
The guerrilla war is transformed into a people's war.
The second conspiracy is deception.
Each imperialist defends his own interests, but all agree on one point: pretend to work for peaceful solutions in order to fool the Palestinian masses into laying down their guns.
Retaliation. The third conspiracy is isolation. Israel proclaims herself to be the fortress of democracy in the Middle East. Zionist propaganda desires the support of the entire capitalist press. But not only the Arab people identify themselves as part of the struggle, as fedayeen. Among the Jews themselves, there are individuals who have joined the resistance against Zionist imperialism.
William Nasser and Kamal Namari are the two Fatah commandos of Jewish origin presently being tortured in Israeli prisons.
Everywhere, throughout the world, support is growing for the Palestinian people.
Comrade, you are not alone. By your side, by our side, march our brothers and sisters from Asia, from Africa, and from Latin America. Look to and count the numbers of our heroic Vietnamese comrades. They should serve as our example. Every day we must reaffirm the solidarity which unites us with our brothers and sisters fighting in Laos and Guinea, with Africans and with Chinese. Comrade, nothing can stop people's war.
People's war is invincible.